You ever met someone who says, I just go with the flow? That's not wisdom. That's cowardice disguised as chill. Going with the flow is what leaves you broke, bitter, and wondering why your life looks like a rerun of everybody else's mistakes. The only thing that flows naturally is a river, and even that's controlled by gravity. You need strategy, you need precision, you need war, not on people, on your own mediocrity. Today, we're cracking open one of the oldest, most misunderstood books in human history, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, a man who didn't just theorize strategy, he lived it. You want receipts? Try getting hired by a king by turning his royal concubines into disciplined soldiers and executing the king's favorites when they laughed at his orders. That's not HR compliant. That's uncompromising leadership. This isn't just a military manual, it's a masterclass in life strategy. Sun Tzu's wisdom is used by billionaires in boardrooms, athletes on game day, and yes, even politicians when they pretend to be clever. Why? Because war, as Sun Tzu teaches, isn't always with swords and spears. Today, it's emails, arguments, corporate sabotage, social betrayal, and inner doubt. And just so we're clear, this video falls under the Fair Use Act. It's for educational and transformative purposes. We're not parroting the book. We're extracting it, dissecting it, modernizing it, and setting it on fire if it doesn't apply to real life. If you're here expecting a dull Spark Notes summary, leave. But if you're tired of getting outmaneuvered by coworkers, lovers, or your own lazy habits, buckle up. Who was Sun Tzu? Sun Tzu, aka Sun Wu, was a Chinese military strategist born around 544 BC. His ideas were so powerful, they made a literal king say, "This dude is scary, put him in charge." His name lives on, not because he killed the most people, but because he outfought them. He believed that winning a war without fighting was the highest form of victory. Can you even comprehend that? Winning, without throwing a single punch. That's what mastery looks like, but here's the kicker. This book has been hijacked by corporate zombies and fake alpha male influencers. We're bringing it back to the people with sarcasm, strategy, and a sledgehammer. Welcome to Mindful Reads Hub. Let's get started. The master plan. Most people walk through life like sheep, minds full of junk, hearts full of fear, and schedules packed with nonsense that doesn't move the needle, and when they fail, they gasp like it was a surprise. But you don't get to be surprised, because here's the brutal truth. If you walk into a battle unprepared, you're not a victim, you're a volunteer. Sun Tzu didn't waste time trying to motivate fools. His first move? Planning. Not marching, not fighting, not tweeting about it, planning. Because anyone can throw a punch, but not everyone can win a war. The real winners? They've already calculated the outcome before the first sword leaves the sheath. Before a move is made, victory or defeat is already decided. Why? Because in war, and yes, life is war, the field is rigged. It's tilted in favor of the one who understands the conditions. There are 5. If you don't know them, don't bother showing up. First, there's the moral law. Not morals like, be a nice person, but the invisible glue between a leader and their people. Will your people follow you into hell without question? If not, don't lead. People love to preach leadership, but most couldn't lead a dog to a hydrant. Then there's heaven and earth. Not in the spiritual sense, but in the real, gritty reality of time, weather, and terrain. Translation, your environment. If you're trying to build a business during a recession or win over a girl during her healing phase, maybe the timing sucks. You can't fight heaven. Adapt to it. Next, the commander. That's you, genius. You think charisma will save you? Sun Tzu says, wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and discipline. You lack even one, and you're a liability. Most people want to lead, but can't even keep a promise to themselves. And discipline? Ha! You say you want success, but you can't skip dessert. Finally, method and discipline. Do your people know their roles? Do you have systems? Or are you freestyling your way through chaos hoping to figure it out? That's not brave. That's dumb. Sun Tzu drills it in. Know these 5 factors like your own pulse. Compare yourself to the enemy based on them. Calculate, measure, plan. But here's the kicker. Most of you don't even know who or what your enemy is. You wake up, doom scroll, drink your overpriced coffee, and somehow expect to win. Newsflash. You're not even in the game, you're background noise, and if you're brave enough to fight, you better know when to fight. You don't charge into battle and then figure it out. That's not courage, that's incompetence. The professional already won before stepping on the field. The amateur is still Googling how to win. The real killer line from Sun Tzu: the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won. That's the code. That's the entire operating system. The elite don't guess. They execute what's already been decided. If you're still sitting there thinking this is just ancient war stuff, let me slap you into the present. This is the CEO who exits meetings already knowing who's going to say yes. This is the athlete who trained for game day scenarios 6 months ago. This is the parent who raises children with structure, not vibes. This is war, and you're losing because you don't think it is. This isn't about violence, it's about understanding leverage, timing, psychology, and control. It's about turning chaos into choreography. It's about predicting, not reacting. And in case you're wondering, reactors don't rule, they serve. So here's your reality check. If your life's a mess, it's because your strategy sucks. You're not unlucky, you're unprepared. Stop winging it, start calculating, and remember, no one will save you if you're outplanned. Not your parents, not your friends, and definitely not your motivational speaker. Key takeaway: the outcome is decided before the battle begins. If you fail to plan, you plan to beg for mercy. Favorite quote: the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won. Burn the ships. They tell you to give 110%. That's a lie. Not just because it's mathematically idiotic, but because most people can't even give 70% without crying about it. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The reason you're stuck isn't because you're under-resourced, it's because you've never committed. You've never actually burned the ships. Sun Tzu doesn't want your half effort. He wants your full destruction of the plan B, the fallback, the escape route. If you step into war, you bring fire, not a flashlight, not a "we'll see what happens" attitude. If you're still exploring your options, you're not in war, you're in denial. He opens this lesson by slapping people who confuse action with intention. Just because you can fight doesn't mean you should. War costs more than blood. It drains resources, crushes morale, burns time, and if dragged out, it devours nations. In modern terms, that side hustle you keep running for 3 years with no strategy, that's siege warfare against your own potential. You're not building, you're bleeding. Sun Tzu says, "In war then, let your great object be victory, not lengthy campaigns." Translation: results over drama. You don't get credit for struggle points. Your tears don't count as trophies. If it takes forever, it's not working. If your grind has no end in sight, it's not noble. It's stupidity disguised as perseverance. Efficient warfare is brief, decisive, and brutal. You either finish the job or get off the field. And when you go to war, actual war, don't do it like a toddler flailing in a toy aisle. You go in calculated, resource-aware, and above all, committed. You don't try war. You dominate or you suffer. That's why he says, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. Translation: if you're reacting, you're losing. If they get to set the pace, dictate the terms, or trigger your emotions, congratulations, you've already surrendered. But here's where it gets delicious. Sun Tzu reveals the ultimate flex, victory without fighting. You heard that right. He calls it supreme excellence. Why? Because brute force is what amateurs use when they can't outthink. Bloodshed is expensive. Destruction is dumb. Real power is walking into a room and bending outcomes without a sword being drawn. Not because you barked the loudest, but because you knew the pressure points, the politics, and the probabilities. That's not aggression, that's precision. You win by shattering the enemy's plans, not their bones. You cut off their alliances, not their heads. You isolate, manipulate, and outmaneuver. Every great CEO, every elite negotiator, every master persuader. They don't shout, they don't shove, they whisper and the world adjusts. And if If it comes to battle, you never besiege unless you're an idiot. Siege is for the clueless, the ones who ran out of ideas. The worst policy is to besiege walled cities, Sun Tzu writes. Do you get that? If you're still trying to break in somewhere, a job, a relationship, a space that clearly resists you, you're not being bold, you're being thick-headed. The smart general walks around the wall, not through it. He even gives us tactical ratios. If your forces are 10-1, surround them. 5-1, attack. Equal. Only fight if you've outmaneuvered them mentally. Outnumbered? Retreat. But what do modern people do? They throw themselves into battles they can't win just to prove they're not a quitter. No, you are a quitter. You just quit on logic. Sun Tzu drops more warnings. Don't let rulers interfere with military strategy. In modern life, that's your ego, your emotions, your social media flexes. That's the internal ruler sabotaging your operations in the field. You make a move, then second guess it because someone didn't like it. You start something, then quit when it's not instantly validated. You're being led, not leading. So what does commitment really look like? It looks like cutting off exit plans. It looks like designing your life so the only way out is through. Want to lose weight? Throw away the junk, delete the food delivery apps, and cancel the pity parties. Want to start that business? Cancel your Netflix, fire your excuses, and stop asking broke people for advice. This is how you wage war. You go in all the way, or don't go in at all. And you don't just charge, you also deceive. Oh, you thought this was about honor? Cute. The art of war is the art of misdirection. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. You win not because you're stronger, but because they never see you coming. You bait them, split them, exhaust them, make them arrogant, and then you strike. This isn't about being fake. It's about being smarter than your opponent. Being a mystery, not an open book. Let them guess. Let them underestimate. That's how you crush them with their own assumptions. Victory isn't loud. Real success, it sneaks up. And when it hits, it doesn't leave survivors. Key takeaway, true power isn't about attacking everything. It's knowing exactly when to commit and never committing halfway. Favorite quote, supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Stillness is power. You ever seen someone panic in traffic? Horns blaring, middle finger flying, slamming the brakes like it's a battle scene from a Fast and Furious blooper reel. And you know what's wild? That same person is trying to build a brand, scale a business, or lead a team. If you can't even hold your composure at a red light, what are you going to do when real chaos shows up? You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems. And if your internal system is emotional spaghetti, you're not leading, you're leaking. Stillness isn't passivity, it's pressure control. And in war, whether battlefield or boardroom, it's the quietest ones that are the most dangerous. Sun Tzu lays down this truth without apology. The best fighters don't look like fighters. They're invisible, inaudible, untouchable, until they strike, and by then, it's already over. This isn't metaphysical poetry, it's strategic murder. The modern world rewards loud, fast, and attention-hungry. Sun Tzu flips the script. Loud is weak, visible is vulnerable, and speed without precision is just flailing in high def. If you're always reacting, always moving, always doing something, you're not a strategist, you're a pawn. Stillness isn't inactivity, it's readiness. The disciplined calm that watches, waits, and then annihilates. Here's how he builds it. First, you protect yourself from defeat. Then you wait for the enemy to make a mistake. You don't chase wins, you stalk them. You let their overconfidence write your strategy. You let their impatience create your opening. Think about that next time you feel the need to respond to every insult, every setback, every stupid opinion someone vomits online. The real killers don't respond. They reappear at the top. Control starts with concealment. In war, the army that hides its intentions wins. But in life, you wear your intentions like a t-shirt. You manifest on social media. You tell everyone your plan. You scream your dreams into an algorithm and wonder why nothing happens. Want a blueprint for defeat? Make yourself predictable. Want a blueprint for dominance? Shut up and build in silence. When no one knows what you're doing, they don't know how to stop you. Sun Tzu says, "The good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy." That means positioning. It means structure. It means preparation without performance. If your life is falling apart every time someone doesn't text back, how are you going to stand still when real stakes show up? How are you going to lead, sell, compete when your default state is emotional turbulence? You don't move unless it's calculated. You don't attack unless it's guaranteed. If your position isn't unshakable, you don't engage. This is the opposite of hustle culture. This isn't about how busy you are. This is about how bulletproof your setup is before you move. If your next step depends on perfect conditions, you're not ready. The calm commander makes his camp on high ground. He plans his angles. He doesn't march because it's morning. He marches because the math is complete and the forecast says, strike now. There's power in indirectness. You don't hit walls. You find cracks. You flow like water. Water doesn't try to punch through stone. It waits, erodes, slips through, then drowns everything underneath. You think brute force wins? Cute. Real dominance adapts, constantly, quietly, subtly. Your approach has to change with every scenario. One-size-fits-all strategy is for amateurs. Sun Tzu doesn't give you tactics, he gives you fluidity, because no plan survives contact with the enemy, but posture does. Here's the real punch in the throat. All men can see the tactics you use to conquer, but what none can see is the strategy behind it. They'll see your success, they'll see your win, but they'll never see the years of restraint, silence, positioning, and patience that made it possible, because those things don't trend. Those things don't get likes, but those are the only things that ever mattered. When you strike, they call you lucky, but luck didn't build the dam, pressure did. And now it breaks. This entire philosophy demands a mindset you've been conditioned to avoid. Subtlety. You've been told to speak your truth, to put yourself out there, to go fast and break things. That's not strength. That's desperation wrapped in dopamine addiction. The truth is, real strength is reserved. Real power is invisible. And when it finally appears, it doesn't need to speak. It's already decided everything. If you want to know who wins the game, find the one who says the least, watches the most, and acts only when silence has done all the heavy lifting. Key takeaway: stillness isn't weakness. It's weaponized control. The ones who wait, rule. Favorite quote: "The good fighter is able to secure himself against defeat, but cannot make certain of defeating the enemy." Precision over power. You keep hearing that effort is everything. Grind hard, push through. Work ethic is the secret, really. Then explain this. How is it that some people work less, move quieter, and still dominate? Because life isn't a weightlifting competition. It's not about how hard you hit. It's about where, when, and if you should hit at all. You don't win because you're stronger. You win because you didn't waste a single ounce of your strength. Most of you, you're swinging sledgehammers at air, then wondering why you're exhausted. Newsflash. It's not power you're missing, it's precision. Sun Tzu was never obsessed with overwhelming force. That's amateur hour. His obsession, efficiency. In his world, you don't attack everything. You find the softest spot, the weakest angle, the quietest opening, and then surgically exploit it. That's not cowardice, that's warfare for grown-ups. But here's what most people do. They take on fights they weren't built for, burn their energy, and try to muscle through problems that require a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. So when they lose, they blame the system. But the truth is, they just charged the wall instead of walking through the door. He says it clearly. Whoever arrives first and waits for the enemy is fresh for the fight. Whoever shows up late is already exhausted. Translation: position beats power. The one who gets set, controls pace, and dictates flow wins. If you're showing up to life always catching up, always reacting, always arriving just a second too late, you don't need to train harder. You need to arrive earlier. Set the terms, not react to them. Stop chasing. Start building where the enemy isn't. This is the art of asymmetry. Never meeting strength with strength. Never punching a tank. Never frontally attacking a fortress. Sun Tzu drills it. If you can attack only where they're not expecting, you're already unstoppable. Let them guard the front door while you crawl in through the vents. Let them build walls while you sneak under the foundation. You want power? Learn the art of invisibility. You want control? Show up where they aren't looking. He warns you to skip the drama of direct force. Indirect tactics, the subtle, fluid, shifting approaches are infinite, like the flow of rivers, like the change of seasons, like the infinite variation in music made from only 5 notes. And here you are, applying the same approach to every challenge in life, wondering why nothing works. You don't need more intensity, you need more angles. Flexibility wins, predictability gets killed. But let's go deeper. He compares movement to water. Think about that. Water doesn't argue, water doesn't beg, water doesn't stop, it doesn't demand permission, it finds a crack, it seeps in, it waits, and then it floods. You can't block it, you can't outmuscle it. You either learn to flow like it or drown trying to resist it. That's your lesson. Stop trying to win by force. Win by becoming so adaptive, so formless that there's no resistance to push against. Be untouchable, then be everywhere. Now comes the killer instinct. The general who is truly skilled. He flashes from the sky, hits where you're weakest, then disappears into the earth. You don't see him coming and you'll never see him again. That's not poetry. That's how lions move. That's how elite operators dismantle empires. That's how leaders take over industries before you even know they existed. The one who wins is the one who chooses not to be seen until the moment he must be felt. And while you're busy being obvious, loud, and clumsy, he's baiting you. He's dividing you. He's starving you of resources, forcing you to move, hitting you from where you least expect. That's precision. That's how you win without even breaking a sweat. Your job isn't to be everywhere. It's to be where you can't be resisted. Your job isn't to take on the biggest obstacle. It's to hit the smallest vulnerability so hard that the entire structure collapses. There's also an art to decision. Not just the action, but when to act. He compares it to a falcon swooping at just the right moment to kill. Not too soon, not too late. One strike, one instant. Total destruction. You call yourself decisive, but you can't even delete an app without 3 days of overthinking. Meanwhile, the people winning aren't faster, they're sharper. They wait for the second that breaks the pattern and they pounce. No wasted movement, no backtracking, just clarity at the speed of instinct. All of this comes down to one brutal truth. You don't need more willpower, you need better judgment. Willpower is expensive, timing is priceless. If you always attack the strong points, you'll break. If you're always broadcasting your strategy, you'll be blocked. But if you move like water, vanish like shadow, and strike like lightning, you don't just win, you own the battlefield. Key takeaway, brute strength is for the untrained. Precision is the tool of power. You win not by meeting force, but by sidestepping it and slicing through what they forgot to protect. Favorite quote, water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare, there are no constant conditions. Adapt or die. You ever see someone go to war with their life using the same 5 dusty tactics they learned back in 2017 from some YouTuber screaming rise and grind? It's tragic, honestly. Like watching a soldier show up to a drone strike with a slingshot. And the worst part, they think it's noble. They think consistency means stubbornness. That sticking to their outdated plan is a badge of honor. No, it's not. It's a blueprint for irrelevance. In the real world, the one Sun Tzu knew and warned about, plans don't survive, but adaptability does. Your rigidity? That's not discipline. It's suicide on a delay. Let's make this simple. Adapt or die. That's not motivational fluff. That's the evolutionary law. And Sun Tzu, he was the Darwin of war. He didn't care how strong your army looked on paper. He wanted to know, when the weather shifts, when the terrain betrays you, when the enemy does what you didn't predict, what then? If you can't shift, you break. If you can't flex, you fall. Strategy isn't about perfection, it's about mobility. Sun Tzu hits this truth with surgical clarity. He talks about variation not as a tactic, but as the tactic. He didn't even bother listing all the variations because there are too many. Just like in life, there are infinite ways to fail, but only one way to survive: evolve. The general who clings to the way it's always worked is already dead. You think your last win means your current approach still works? That's cute. The world moved while you were celebrating. Keep using yesterday's map and you'll get ambushed tomorrow. He points out that in some situations, you don't camp. In others, you don't linger. In some terrains, you ally. In others, you isolate. In real life, you've got to know when to shut up and move, when to play the long game, when to ghost the battlefield and strike from the shadows. You can't afford to be predictable because your enemy is watching, and the moment they map your rhythm, they'll disrupt your beat. And let's not ignore the killer insight here. There are battles you're not supposed to fight, roads you don't follow, towns you don't siege, positions you don't contest. Sometimes the best move is no move, but that takes restraint, and most people, you've trained yourself to react, not to respond. You fight because you're triggered. You engage because your ego got poked. That's not leadership. That's being emotionally hijacked in high definition. Sun Tzu even tells you to disobey the king if necessary. Imagine that. Disobey the sovereign. The general must think, not just follow. Because war isn't about being agreeable. It's about being right. And sometimes being right means going rogue. When the orders don't match reality, reality wins. Blind loyalty is not a virtue. It's a shortcut to a shallow grave. Let's talk about terrain. Not just dirt and rocks. I mean your terrain, your business, your market, your relationships. You think you're making decisions, but really you're being pushed around by the lay of the land. And unless you understand that land better than the people across from you, you're always fighting uphill. You ever see someone launch a product, start a career, enter a room, completely unaware of the climate they just stepped into? It's embarrassing and lethal, because every battlefield has a shape, and if you don't own that shape, it will contort you until you break. He tells you to march where the enemy isn't, not because you're scared, but because you're smart. Strike where they're weak, move where they're blind. That's not cowardice, that's dominance wearing invisibility. Sun Tzu doesn't want you to charge into hell. He wants you to walk into victory, unannounced. This is why awareness matters more than ambition. You can't out-hustle a trap, but you can outthink one. This is where most people screw up. They confuse speed for agility. Agility is adjusting direction. Speed is just momentum. You could be sprinting toward disaster and calling it progress. That's what happens when you're too proud to pivot. But Sun Tzu warns you, over and over again, that the terrain changes, the enemy adapts, and so must you. Every victory is conditional. What worked yesterday will fail you today if you don't rewire and realign. The book literally tells you to study the shape of the land, the patterns of movement, the habits of men, because knowing where you are is more valuable than knowing what you want. Without context, your ambition is just a bullet with no barrel, a fire with no fuel. You need guides, you need data, you need clarity, but most people want results more than they want intelligence, so they charge in and bleed out. Adaptability also means letting go of your favorite tactic, the one that worked, the one that made you a name. You think the play that won you the game is the same one that's going to win the championship? No, it's the one they'll read first. The best generals, they never repeat tactics, because repetition is a tell. And once you're predictable, you'll prey. So here's the truth. You don't need a master plan. You need master responsiveness. Plans crumble, but perception recalibrates. And strategy, real strategy, lives in that recalibration. Key takeaway. Winning doesn't belong to the strongest. It belongs to the most adaptable. If you can't bend, you will break. If you can't shift, you'll be shoved off the board. You don't need more power, you need more perception. Favorite quote, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. Own the ground. You ever seen someone charge into life like a bull in a museum, smashing everything they don't understand, only to blame the broken glass on bad luck, bad friends, or worse, bad timing? Yeah, here's the reality check. It wasn't the timing, it was the terrain. They never took 5 seconds to ask where they were standing before they pulled the damn trigger. They didn't read the room, or the field, or the topography of the game they were playing. And Sun Tzu, he's not giving you a participation trophy for that kind of idiocy. He's putting a map in your hand and asking, are you sure you even know where you're standing? Because here's the truth. No motivational guru with a ring light is going to tell you. Where you fight decides how you fight. You're not some mythical warrior hacking your way to glory on any random dirt patch. You are, whether you like it or not, subject to context. The battlefield dictates the battle, and if you don't control the ground beneath your feet, someone else will make you dance to their rhythm until you collapse from exhaustion or embarrassment. Sun Tzu isn't obsessed with terrain because he's a fan of landscaping. He's obsessed with it because terrain is power, 6 types in one section, 9 in another, because real life doesn't hand you one kind of struggle. You've got the accessible terrain, the easy road, the wide open path that looks safe. It's not, it's bait. If your enemy can walk the same road as you, guess what? You're not ahead, you're just visible. Entangling terrain? That's when you're knee deep in situations that seemed simple until they weren't. Kind of like taking a temporary job that eats 5 years of your life. Welcome to the jungle, and no machete in sight. Then there's temporizing ground, that limbo. You know the one, the job you don't hate but don't love, the relationship you're figuring out, the move you'll make when the time is right. Sun Tzu says, retreat. Now, if the gain isn't worth the risk, pull back and wait for your moment, but do it intentionally, not passively. Don't linger in dead space and call it patience. That's cowardice dressed in yoga pants. Narrow passes? Yeah, they look like shortcuts, but they're death traps. Anyone who's ever tried to cut corners in a deal, a career, or a fight knows that. The wise take them first and lock them down. Don't just enter a narrow pass, own it, fortify it, make it yours before someone turns it into your coffin. Precipitous heights, sounds poetic, feels suicidal. You better have high ground and the guts to hold it, because falling isn't romantic, it's just physics. The lesson, you don't chase elevation unless you're ready to defend it with everything you've got. And the 9 situations? Oh, that's where things go from strategic to spiritual. Sun Tzu gives you the human blueprint, 9 psychological environments that break people or make them legendary. Dispersive ground, you're fighting close to home and everyone wants to go back. Facile ground, you're in a new place but not committed. Serious ground, you're deep enough to matter but not deep enough to win. Each one demands a different version of you. Each one exposes the frauds who think confidence can substitute for competence. Desperate ground, that's where you burn the ships. That's where there's no exit and no backup. You either fight or you die. And here's the catch. Sometimes you need to put yourself there. Sometimes the way forward is to eliminate the way back. Want to know why you keep bailing when it gets hard? Because you left the door open. You told yourself you'd see how it goes. Sun Tzu would have set that door on fire and handed you the match. This is what people miss. War and life isn't won by force. It's won by placement, by choosing where to plant your flag, where to stand, where to run, and where to not show up at all. Because some battles aren't worthy of your presence, and some victories are only possible when you control the terrain. It's not just about knowing where you are. It's about knowing where your enemy is weak. It's understanding when to let them move first, when to bait them with space, when to lure them into traps they don't know they're walking into. It's chess played in miles and minutes, not just moves. Sun Tzu even goes meta. If you understand terrain, you can use the ground itself as a weapon. Your enemy will be so disoriented by your positioning, they'll never know what hit them. They'll fight gravity, direction, exposure, all before they fight you. That's strategy. That's brilliance. That's why this isn't a game of strength. It's a game of leverage. You ever wonder why some people seem to win with less? It's not luck. It's not timing. It's because they're standing on the right patch of ground while you're busy performing on quicksand. They chose the fight where the fight favored them. You chose the fight that felt urgent. Congratulations. You got urgent failure. So here's your wake-up call. Before you flex, before you attack, before you launch your next big plan, ask yourself one thing. Do you own the ground? If the answer is no, sit down, study, learn the terrain, and move only when the dirt beneath your feet says, now. Key takeaway. You don't win because you're strong. You win because you're standing where strength matters. Control the field and you control the fight. Let someone else dictate the terrain, and you're already lost before you even arrive. Favorite quote, "If you know heaven and know earth, you may make your victory complete." Endgame intelligence. You think war ends with the bang, the clash, the final charge? No, the real war ends in whispers, in shadows, in the lies you don't see coming until your world's already burning. You think the strong survive? No, the informed do. The rest just walk blindfolded into fires they never lit. If you're out here making decisions without intelligence, you're not a warrior. You're a casualty in waiting. The final lessons of Sun Tzu are not about brute force, bold charges, or brave speeches. They're about fire and silence, about manipulation so quiet it sounds like intuition. He doesn't end the art of war with the roar of battle. He ends it with the hiss of a match and the footsteps of a spy. Fire is more than destruction. It's timing, it's fear, it's spectacle. Sun Tzu lays it out plainly. There are 5 ways to use it: burn soldiers, burn supplies, burn transport, burn arsenals, and ambush with fire as chaos unfolds. But this isn't your weekend warrior bonfire. This is psychological warfare disguised as elemental force. You don't use fire just to kill. You use it to break will, to make your enemy question if they were ever in control. Light one flame in the right place at the right time, and you don't just destroy, you dismantle resolve. But here's the real twist. Fire only matters when it's intelligent, when it's surgical. Sun Tzu warns that fire can destroy your enemy, but it can just as easily destroy you. Use it wrong. Let your ego light the match instead of strategy, and you're the one who gets reduced to ash. He literally says, don't move unless there's gain. Don't fight unless the position is critical. That's not passivity, that's precision. That's the difference between an assassin and a drunk with a gun. Now here's where it gets even colder, because what Sun Tzu does next is remove all emotion from warfare. No rage, no revenge. If you're leading troops into war to satisfy your ego or your anger, you've already lost. Why? Because emotion makes you predictable. Predictable makes you targetable. And if you're targetable, well, hope your next of kin likes flags. So what does Sun Tzu say the most powerful weapon is? Not fire, not swords, not soldiers, it's information. And who delivers that? Spies. The game-ending players you never see. Spies are the difference between guessing and knowing. And if you're guessing, you're gambling with blood you probably won't be around to clean up. He defines 5 types: local, inward, converted, doomed, surviving, each with a role in building what he calls the divine manipulation of the threads. Let that sink in. Divine. You are playing God with perception. You're not reacting, you're orchestrating. Every move your enemy makes is one you planted. That's not paranoia, that's power. And it gets deeper. Converted spies, your opponent's agents turned double, are the most sacred asset in the whole damn book. They're the ones who tell you what your enemy doesn't even know they've revealed. Through them, you build a spiderweb of deception that holds entire empires suspended in uncertainty. Want to win a war without ever being seen? Turn their spies, use them to recruit more, feed them lies, make them doubt themselves. When they finally realize they've been pawns, the board is already yours. This is next level warfare, psychological, strategic, poetic in its cruelty. It's the silent dismantling of entire systems by the few who bothered to listen when everyone else was shouting. This is where modern readers fall off. They think intelligence is just about data. No, it's about decisions. It's not about knowing more. It's about knowing what matters and hiding what doesn't. It's about using truth as bait and fiction as venom. And it works. Because most people are too distracted to notice they're being played. They're so obsessed with looking strong, they forget to be smart. They think spying is dishonorable. You know what's really dishonorable? Leading people to slaughter because you didn't know what the hell was going on. Honor without intelligence is just expensive stupidity. Sun Tzu doesn't romanticize war. He ends with the coldest truth of all. The final blow is never loud. It's never glorious. It's not even seen. It's done long before the fight begins, in whispers, in bribes, in secrets, where the war is already over and the world just hasn't caught up yet. Key takeaway: information isn't power. Used information is. Fire burns, lies linger, the ones who win are the ones who knew, before the rest even realized there was a game. Favorite quote: thus what enables the wise sovereign and the good general to strike and conquer and achieve things beyond the reach of ordinary men is foreknowledge. Conclusion. Let's make one thing clear. The Art of War isn't some dusty philosophy book written for ancient generals wearing robes and swinging swords. It's a weapon, a mindset, a manual for anyone who's tired of living soft, thinking soft, and losing quietly. Every single line in this book is a scalpel, not for cutting flesh, for cutting delusion. You think this is just about war? No, this is about you finally shutting up the noise in your head and planning your moves like your life actually depends on them. Because it does. Every weakness you allow is a door. Every hesitation you justify is a crack in your armor. Every predictable move you repeat is an invitation to get played. And you're getting played every day by louder people, weaker ideas, and enemies you won't even call enemies because you're too scared to admit life isn't neutral. You can't hustle your way through chaos. You need strategy. You need silence. You need patience that feels like violence. This book, it's not a read, it's a recalibration, and if you don't own it, you're out here swinging in the dark with nothing but hope and habit. That's not courage, that's suicide with a smile. So go buy the damn book, study it, annotate it, dissect it, then apply it, not someday, but now. Because while you were watching just one more video, someone else was building their empire on the same pages you ignored. Don't be inspiration drunk and execution poor. If this hit different, good. Now do something about it. Don't just like the video, live the message. And if you're serious about leveling up, hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, because we don't do fluff here, we do fire. Turn on the bell so you don't miss the next breakdown that will punch your ego in the throat and then teach it to lead. And drop a comment below if you're done playing checkers in a chess world. I'll see you on the battlefield.